Welcome Media Restaurant, and they've made us feel most welcome. Our base in Montpellier, the Wallabies base in Montpellier. The pictures you're seeing are from Nantes, and this gentleman is the great Johnny Wilkinson. Boy, have the English been longing for him to come back from injury. What role will he play today?
Well, he'll play some sort of role. The great white hope, Johnny Wilkinson, lining up for the anthems and another big game of Rugby World Cup.
Samoa, recorded by the Republican Guard and the French Army Choir.
Final words, Ben Darwin, how do England win this game?
They've just got to keep it in the forwards. They've got to go straight through the middle, line out, scrum, rolling maul, get it to 10.
And Tunie, if the Samoans have got any chance, how are they going to crack the English?
Well, they're going to copy what the South Africans did. They have to rattle, bash, destroy the English pack, dominate the breakdown, get out in front early and hang on for dear life.
The English side, changes made after their defeat at the hands of the Box, and a war cry from the Samoans about to unleash.
The Samoans have had their say. Now let's hear from your commentators for this very important game from Nantes.
Lewis, the referee, who will be presiding over this one. And David, it just, for me, the question that has to be asked is it the fault of the coaching within Northern Hemisphere rugby, especially within England, or is it just a dearth of talent at the moment?
Oh, I don't think we can answer that question in 30 seconds, can you? I think there's a whole load of different things. One thing is for sure, the English players haven't performed to their full potential in this Rugby World Cup. And this is their first opportunity with their backs to the wall to really do something special. So for me, it's a real test of character. It's a test of how much backbone they've got and whether they can turn it on when it really, really matters.
Well, they haven't succeeded in doing so for quite some time now as Johnny Wilkinson gets us underway, and the Samoans with some very loose handling, but that might not be totally against their game plan. I mean, they won't want to throw possession away, but keeping it loose will allow them an opportunity to maybe use that outside spark that they have in the backs, which was very much lacking, especially against the Tongans. Ball charged down and an immediate opportunity for Joe Worsley. A very cumbersome effort to chase after the ball there from Joe Worsley. Still, England with a golden opportunity. Gomersall to Wilkinson. Out to Tate. It's very statty again. Lucy cutting back inside. Mark Cueto, whose experiment at full-back has not been continued. Popped off. This is better handling from the forwards than we've seen for almost years. Still, the Samoans defend. Gomersall to Wilkinson. Long pass flung out wide. Chance to cut back in for Corrie. And he's over for the try. Well, the dream start for Brian Ashton. It all came from the charge down kick. And well, we were talking about Martin Corrie's one-dimensional nature, but the one thing you do know that you'll get from him is a full 80 minutes if he's kept on the pitch that long, and a real positive start for him to get over the try line.
Well, it's the ideal start for England. You know, 5 points on the scoreboard. You knowing what Johnny Wilkinson is like, it'll be 7. But actually, they could have scored 2 or 3 times before that. Nick Easter, after a beautiful little slip pass, then picked and drove, and I think he should have allowed Gomersall to have released it. There was a very poor pass to Matthew Tate, who had to take it behind him. You know, so just these little bits of accuracy. I mean, they've come away with the points, but little bits of accuracy. Hopefully, their confidence will grow, having converted the pressure into points.
But there is the distinct possibility, conversely, that when we look back 4 years, that the Samoans, well, the raw tells you everything about that kick. Not that it was, as you say, David, ever in doubt. But the Samoans took a shock lead against England. Well, Samoans will definitely feel here, okay, they've got to put that behind them. There have been many examples of sides conceding early tries against teams that they would feel that they would like to beat, and I know that it does seem ridiculous on the world stage that we're talking about the Samoans in that sort of nature as the favourites almost for this one, which perhaps they aren't, but they will feel that they can come into this one and definitely take something out of it. They felt that before the World Cup even started, so they've just got to make sure that they get the basics right for the next 10 minutes and don't concede any more points. Well taken, and the English forwards very much on the front foot in this early encounters, and a penalty conceded. So, well, you talked about winning the game up front.
Well, I'm just trying to remember when I last saw a really dynamic English forward drive like that. You know, it's just been very ponderous up until now. There's been no real aggression or dominance at the contact area, and you know, I'm sure they'll take a lot from this, as indeed it'll dent the Samoans' confidence.
Definitely. But by the same token, I mean, even with that early charge down kick, I mean, it wasn't as though Joe Worsley looked as though he was going to beat anyone to it, really. I mean, this has been the major problem. It's so lethargic and flat. Slow ball from the breakdown. It would be good to see an evolution during this game, even though it is, I say, only against Samoa. That one to the back of the line didn't look particularly straight, but the referees allowed it to go. Nick Easter and Martin Corrie the front of that one, and the England forwards get a bit of a rumble on. The Samoans have slowed it down slightly, but the English forwards still well in control here. At the back with Shooter. And this really will be a huge dent in the Samoan confidence if the English can get another early score. They are well in control at this stage. Gomersall. Thanks for support. Once again, it's slowed down and space out wide here. Josh Lucy joining a line, but the defence across to cover it. Gomersall again. Saki coming in. Just too static though, and this has been the problem with the English attacking play for the last 2 or 3 seasons. Back, and Wilkinson knows they mustn't leave without points, and well, that is the difference.
They're 10 points ahead and 6 minutes on the clock.
Absolutely. Well, it was not the start that Michael Jones would have been looking for, and he asked his side for a real difference in approach to this game, because they were incredibly flat against Tonga. It was almost that victory they'd had against them in the Pacific Nations Cup, 50 points to 3, made them think that all they needed to do was turn up. This is the World Cup though. This is the centre stage for world rugby, and Samoa, who have enjoyed a rich tradition in this competition, twice making the quarter-finals, well, they're just not quite looking there. And when you compare it to the Tongan performance, I'm probably being harsh on them. There's only 6.5 minutes on the clock and they haven't really had any possession, but they do need something different. And Satiti's got a real uphill struggle here to try and lift it. They look flat again. But then again, if English possession and ball is as languid as we've seen over the last months, and they give away rather needless penalties like that, and the Samoans are given a window of opportunity back into this game.
Well, it was a poor piece of play there by Nick Easter, I think, at the base of the scrum. I mean, he went one way and then came the other way, and well, you can see Gomersall holding back Junior Polu, preventing the tackle.
Well, this is going to be a very interesting thing, because, as I said, Gavin Williams, definitely the man that you'd back to slot your penalties, and he's done so with excellent accuracy for the Samoans throughout this competition so far. He's injured. He is with the team here watching the game today, but it's Loki Crichton who takes on the kicking duties, and well, can he respond to the challenge? You do feel if it goes down to a straight shootout between him and Wilkinson, I'm fairly sure I know the majority of the world's money would be.
Yeah, I think it'd be foolish to bet against Wilkinson.
Now down at the sidelines we've got Tulson Tollett. Tulson, how have the opening exchanges taken your fancy in this one?
What I can tell you is that Lockie Crichton moves into this kick and hits it rather sweetly, so 3 points there to Samoa after.
If the scoring continues as it started, you may well be right there, Tulson. Now, the first time that Polu has had a chance to run with the ball, and that puts plenty of pressure out on the wing on Cueto. Does well there, the winger. Gomersall responds with the box kick of his own, but one wrapped up by Loki Crichton. And the English look to counter-attack. This time, the left boot of Johnny Wilkinson once again putting the pressure on. It's been a tournament that's seen some desperately poor kicking between sides, and no better exponent of that than Mike Catt in the game against South Africa. And Gomersall picks out touch, just the sensible thing to do there, because the kicking game was going nowhere between either side.
Well, it is, and it's interesting. I thought Samoa might want to look to counter a lot more, particularly on loose kicks where there's no pressure, and we've seen a couple of those already from England. But seem quite content to play the kicking in aerial ping-pong games.
How do you see the line-out going? Do you see Samoans being able to live with England in that department? So it's a break here from Henry Tuilangi. And all of a sudden, those 3 points that Loki Crichton has managed to put on the board seem to have given the Samoans back that confident edge that they would have started the game with. It's the other Tuilangi this time, Alisana, who bursts through and fully recycles. He's being held back there. The referee waves advantage. Some slingshot passing for the South Sea Islands, exactly what we expect. And it's another penalty, and this should be a simple opportunity for Crichton to reduce the deficit to 4. And, well, just as we were saying, a really positive start from England. Back come the Samoans.
Well, I think you would, if you're in the Samoan camp, you'd want to get the Tuilangi brothers into the game, running at the English as early as possible. They've got thighs like tree trunks, and they're very, low centre of gravity. And look at them, I mean, they're hugely powerful men. So I think they'll want to get these guys with the ball in the hands as often as possible. And well, it's maybe not as one-sided as we thought it might be after the early English exchanges, but.
Well, definitely one of the interesting things that's come from that passage of play is that England have had 2 good opportunities. They were on the 6th phase when Johnny Wilkinson kicked that drop goal, and they had no one who looked as though he was going to break the line. The Samoans, the 2 big Tuilangi brothers, absolute powerhouses with getting the ball at pace. Now, once again, something that you do not see, in my view, the English backline or the English forwards doing frequently enough. And in fact, it's been a fault of all Northern Hemisphere sides in the last few years. Just too many flat balls going out of the backs and expecting backs to go from a standing start. And we see the difference there. Loki Crichton, right in his game with the kicking. You wouldn't expect him to have missed that second one, but he slotted it between the posts, and a really excellent comeback from the Samoans. And England know they're in a game now. Wilkinson with the restart, taken in well, and once again the Samoans will be given an opportunity here, perhaps to counter from deep. Instead they go for the kicking option though. It's a well-placed kick, and quickly taken inside to Lucy. Well, this has been one of the most disappointing aspects as well of the English game at this Rugby World Cup. Crichton misses touch again though, and they could be, well, I say they could be punished, but they're only going to be punished if it comes back with interest. Gomersall thought about the kick, instead went back to his forwards, and that was a sensible option. Bit of space out wide here for England. Cueto driven forward. Good support play from Joe Worsley out wide there. Gomersall comes back inside. Cueto. Support there again comes from Sheridan, but it's just slowing down. But illegally slowed down, and this is something the Samoans will have to be very wary of when Johnny Wilkinson's on the pitch. As we saw throughout the whole of the last World Cup, whenever England needed to turn to a plan B, because to be honest they didn't have the most incredible plan A out in Australia, but when they needed a plan B they just turned to getting into the positions to win the penalties, and they ground the opposition down. And when you have his kicking ability, it's 3 points every time.
But when you made the point there, it was slow ball, and that has been an endemic problem for England in both matches that they've played. Even against the USA, who you would have thought England could really outmuscle at the contact areas. The USA were able to slow things down, and it just allowed their defences to reorganise themselves, and made it very, very difficult for England to put any sort of dynamic thrusting play together.
Wilkinson then striking the familiar pre-kick pose.
don't think England will worry. If they come away with a win, that's their primary objective. If it's 8 penalties from Johnny Wilkinson and 1 try, but they win, I don't think they'll worry.
Oh no, I think you're absolutely right. The only thing that they will worry about is the fact that if the clamps are put on them ticking the scoreboard over and the Samoans suddenly score a try, for instance, if the Samoans were to get a try now, suddenly puts the pressure right back on. Just remains to be seen whether they can hold the discipline together. The kicking game has been woefully employed by England once again, and it's easy possession taken by the Samoans, and they get to fling it out wide through the backs for one of the first times, rather than using the Tuilangis on the crash ball. English defence up quickly, managing to get involved there, and a turnover from Nick Easter. Gomersall. Wilkinson, can he employ a more sensible touch to the corner? Well, the answer is in fact no.
Well, he'll have to scrum back if it hit the corner flag, I think.
No, he was going for too much perfection on that occasion. But Johnny Wilkinson, I mean, is not the player. Well, first of all, I don't think he is the player he was 4 years ago. He just hasn't had enough big game experience. But second of all, he's not the player that you'd expect to be missing that sort of kick. He may as well bring it back. There's no difference really between putting one of those kicks 10 yards. Well, okay, there is a difference, but there's no real difference between putting it 1 yard out or 10 yards out. It's just kicking for position, and England putting the pressure on the Samoans.
Absolutely, and I think that's what they've got to do, and that's what Wilkinson usually is a pass master at. He just drills it into the corner and plays for position, and you got to, if you have that for a sustained period of time, it's kind of like you're stuck in the mud. You just can't get away from it. The pressure becomes relentless, and inevitably you concede penalties, and that's where Wilkinson converts them. But
free kick taken quickly by Polo. He glides through the England line at will, but fails to get the pass away to David Lemmy.
Well, poor tackling by England. I mean, they missed a couple of tackles on the Tuilagi brothers earlier on, but Junior Polo doesn't have anything like the physique there. They've really got to close up that defence and put in the first-time tackles.
Well, the familiar chant of Elele Bleu rings out around the stadium here. Now, Tolson, you're down on the sidelines. How's the atmosphere whipping up, and are the majority of French people within the ground possibly supporting Samoa?
Well, Jonathan, during the national anthems, you would have sworn of the 38,500 or so people here that 38,000 were Englishmen. But all of a sudden, things have changed during the course of the match. Fair enough, the Samoan anthem, there are a lot of neutrals here, so there wasn't as much noise as during the English anthem, but yes, there is a lot of French people here who are supporting the Samoan team. They want to see a Samoan victory. But I can tell you one thing on the weather. Earlier in the day, it was around 25 or so degrees, and the wind is coming in from directly behind as the viewers are looking at those pictures, and I'm a little bit concerned about the rain because I'm sitting here with no raincoat and umbrella.
Well, we feel very sorry for you, Tolson.
Yeah, that's global warming in action. Bad luck, Tolson.
But you'd probably feel that if the rain did come down, it's going to suit England slightly more than it will the Samoans, because their game can revert to Wilkinson just kicking for position, which it looks as though it's probably based on already. But in these opening exchanges, I mean, we're approaching the quarter of the way through this game, and after the way England started, do you think they'll be disappointed by how the game's progressed? The fact they haven't really imposed that forward authority that they looked as though they were going to have?
Yeah, I think they would have wanted to have had a little bit more territorial advantage, and they'd want to have had more opportunity to really assert themselves up front. But it's a pretty even battle at the moment. There's no quarter being asked for or given in this one.
It's a long clearance kick going into touch from Tate. But just England at the moment just seem to be, well, they're lacking spark in every single department, but they don't have the self-belief. And you do feel the other side of things, that if the Samoans can stay within a reasonable striking margin in this game, that English self-belief and just panic can set in towards the end, because they have to win this game. It's so much has been vested upon it.
Yeah, I think both sides really needing to boost their confidence to let them move on.
It's a good steal in the line-out from the English. Can they do anything in the backs here? Tate gets a chance to run for one of the first times in this World Cup. Gomersall goes blind. Good hands out wide to Joe Worsley. Good momentum kept going here by the English back row forwards. Wilkinson flung out wide again, but just too slow in midfield, and they've gone back about 10 yards there, and it's been illegally stolen. And it's Joe Takori who gives away the penalty, and well, Joe Takori and Kane Thompson both being spoken to there by Alan Lewis, and it's a poor position for the Samoans to be giving away possession, especially really there when they'd already snuffed out the English threat of attack.
Well, they had, but for once England actually were able to recycle ball quickly. They got quick ball, and Gomersall switched it away, and then Wilkinson put a deep pass, and he found a forward, and that's when all the momentum was lost. And actually the tackle was made about 10 yards behind where the ball was recycled from. And, that's been England's problem right the way through this World Cup. They need to get their strike runners into space. If that ball had gone to Matthew Tate, you'd have expected him to put a lot more pace onto it.
But it's something that has been spoken about a lot in the British media, and also the Southern Hemisphere media have been picking it out. Just the fact that England seem to have become obsessed with this, using the forwards in the line, and it's all very well when you have someone like Victor Matfield, who not only is very adept with the ball in his hands, but he's also reasonably quick. You've got John Schmidt, probably I'd say the quickest hooker around at the moment. The South Africans have it, the New Zealanders have it, the Australians have it. They all have forwards who have pace, whereas these lumbering old men that many of them are in the England side, it's pointless giving them the ball out wide. Still, no mistake. As I said, we'll keep you posted if Johnny Wilkinson misses one. He didn't. It's back out to the 10-point lead, but it's an intriguing encounter at this stage, but England will feel that they've got their noses ahead. They just need some form of running rugby that's going to give the crowd something to really support them for, because at the moment the English crowd, they're going to be happy with a win, but there's so much that win's most important, but then it's going to be the way it's achieved. And Brian Ashton said that he wants them to play a different type of rugby. Well, we haven't really seen that in evidence yet.
No, but that was more like it by Gomersall. A cracking kick there, and Samoa right back and under pressure, having to play rugby from 30 yards from their own try line now.
Once again, good pressure put on the Samoan line out by England. It does look as though that's going to be a particular facet of the game, which the screw will be turned on, and it's something they've targeted. Still, tidy ball. Well, even in the game between Tonga and South Africa earlier today, JP Peterson and Brian Habana, when he came on, both of them constantly looking for the ball. They want to have a run at the opposition. Paul Saki, who sort of made a name for himself for doing that in the Premiership, just not really ever pushed that up to test level. And another player here who the same was said about was Joe Worsley coming into this tie. Well, can he stand up on the big occasion and be a man to be counted? Well, on initial showing, he's having a tidy enough game. It just looks to lack the pace that's needed. Wilkinson with the up and under to put the pressure on Loki Crichton. Just a bit too long, that kick. Taken quickly by Crichton. And the Samoans look to attack from deep. Need support here. And it wasn't there. And holding on, well, they are just going to hemorrhage points if they give away penalties in these positions.
Well, Bernard Lapasse and Bill Beaumont discussing the niceties of the ruck and maul. You can see Samoa going over the top, but Semo Statiti obviously not happy with that decision. And I think when you look at the penalty count, it would be very much in favour of England. Samoa haven't had many penalties going their way.
They haven't had many penalties going their way, but at the same time, they haven't had, I'll be interested to see, but I don't think they've had that much possession. They had a small segment between sort of 6 and 10 minutes, but the rest of it, albeit fairly painful to watch, English possession, they have actually had the ball. Almost an identical kick, this one for Wilkinson. And we're just informed there that it's 62-38 possession-wise in England's favour. Great enterprise shown here. Polu back inside, slightly loose handling though, and when Mapusua should have probably held on and waited for some forward support. It's turnover to England and Wilkinson, but a fairly ordinary kick. Tuilangi picks it up and demonstrates he doesn't have a left foot and hacks it out into touch, so it'll be line-up ball to England. But
well, very threatening for Samoa, particularly on the counter-attack. They took the quick drop out from that missed Wilkinson penalty. And that's where, you know, they're trying to keep the ball alive, they're trying to offload and keep the continuity going, but just a little bit high risk there.
Mapusua, just a little bit of sevens rugby there when he would have been more sensible, because I mean they'd made the inroads, they just needed a bit of forward support there. Drive forward, the English players going backwards, they could have easily won a penalty, or they could have even got it back out into the backs, and they were in prime position there to probably cause some problems for the English defence. As it is though, England survive. The Samoans though, they'll want to be attacking that from the halfway line rather than having to do it from their own 22. If they can get into those positions and attack from the halfway line, they're going to feel far more confident that they can get over the English line. From the back, it's Henry Tuilangi with the pick-up. Now England look to turn this one over, and they've done so successfully. Now Gomersall, Wilkinson, terrible pass into midfield, and actually, I mean, Ollie Barkley's been virtually anonymous since the beginning of this game, and England player in the way there. Josh Lucy was,
I think Junior Polo suggesting that actually he might have been in the way and almost like lazy running.
Last one was tight.
But it was a dreadful pass by Wilkinson. Just maybe signs of rustiness, not a lot of match practice. Obviously he's been out injured for such a long time.
Goes into the back, and the English have stolen it once again. A chance here to counter. Tate snips back inside, past two tackles. Ball set again for Gomersall. Quickly recycled ball this time, but just going for the big forwards rather than trying to use the pace out wide. I mean, there's a possibility it could work, but feet just losing their feet there, and slow ball again, and
watch it too.
England have to start again from scratch with George Shooter at the back, and it's just painfully slow after watching the speed at which the Southern Hemisphere sides have been recycling the ball, getting it into the backs and breaking through the line and attacking the lines, and just phase after phase of possession like that. English rugby has regressed, and that is exactly the opposite of what one would have thought when they picked up the trophy 4 years ago, but that is what's happened, and it's just painful to watch at the moment. And there is the ball possession. England enjoying 63% to 37, and really with that sort of possession advantage, I know that statistics tell lies, but just a 10-point advantage would be disappointing.
Well, I think the one worrying thing from a Samoa perspective is the control of the ball, the set piece. I mean, it was a turnover from that last scrum. They've lost a couple of lineouts, and you know, really they have to tighten up on their set piece, because, as you said, it's a question of possession. If they can retain possession and get possession in good positions, then they're going to be far more threatening.
Then we're going to have a blood replacement here, I should imagine.
Here we are.
But so far, the English tactics don't look at all dissimilar to the ones that have been employed throughout the last 18 months in the build-up to this World Cup. And one just have to say, it's not good rugby to watch at all, which is presumably why so many people are supporting the Samoans. Apart from anything else, a little more enterprise is employed usually in rugby played by the Samoans. Josh Lucy picks up A long kick forward, which has been well chased. Hands off Lemmy, who just couldn't stay on his feet against the Tongans when he came off the bench. Slipped all over the place. Not sure whether he's changed his boots or not for this one. A kick down the line, which should have been kicked for position and finding touch. Hasn't, and Alisana Tuilangi gets up ahead of steam. Questionable whether that was forward or not. The referee doesn't seem to think so. That did go forward though. Paul Saki picks up the ball, and the English forwards in straight away are Simon Shaw and Martin Corrie, now released. Wilkinson sees a little bit of an opportunity down the blind side, but his kick was not well executed, and Loki Crichton is with plenty of time to pick his spot and clear it away. And a perfect example, that passage of play, of how this game's going, really.
That last one.
Simon Shaw getting up ahead of steam and actually carrying the ball over the gain line on this occasion. Once again, turning to the forwards. Matt Stevens is the target this time. Now out to the backs. Wilkinson. Something on here, possibly. Cutting in comes Mark Cueto. Quickly recycled ball. Can England make something of it here? There should be the opportunity. Samoa defence was outnumbering the backs' options there. Gomerson again, Wilkinson, little chip through. Saki should be on this, and he is. And once again, we see the bonus of having Johnny Wilkinson in the side. Yes, he's put in a few loose kicks, and he missed his last kick a goal. But on this occasion, judging the defence coming up quickly, saw the opportunity to exploit that, and Saki finally coming off his line, off his wing, to do the work that we've asked him to sort of come and look for, and gets in and scores the try.
But the whole thing about that was there were 2 or 3 phases where it was quick ball, recycled well, and England put pace onto it. And as soon as they put pace onto it, they got in behind Samoa, and the Samoan defence was disorganised. Even that last one, it was slightly slower, and so Wilkinson had to put the kick through, but well-executed kick, good try, and again, you know, pressure being turned into points for once.
Pressure being turned into points, and England building up a substantial advantage here. Probably the most important phase of that play was after Simon Shaw's initial burst, when the ball was recycled to Matt Stevens. He came on and took it in a very different way to what the sort of rugby we've seen employed by England. He was going at full tilt, and that carried him over the gain line.
Absolutely. I mean, quick ball, couple of quick recycles, and they score a try. Slow ball, and they have to look for a penalty or look for the drop goal.
Still, I definitely think that things are looking far more positive, because this was seen as a potential banana skin, and after 34 minutes on the clock, the Samoans have had very little to offer so far, apart from the breaks made by the Tuilangi brothers, which have resulted in conversion into just 6 points. Michael Jones has got a lot of soul-searching to do, because he was so disappointed with the way they played against Tonga, a game they expected to win, and they lose possession there again, and the ball hoofed forward. Pressure will be on here. Samoans running out of defence. This is what the crowd have come to see, and now Tuilangi takes it on. Deft little touch off the outside of the boot. Plenty of pressure on here, but it's well dealt with in the end. Slightly sliced kick, and as you look at the veterans bench, Chelsea pensioners, whatever you want to call them, really, I mean, Lawrence Delalio's inclusion in this squad looks more and more bizarre by the day, doesn't it?
Well, I think it, picked on reputation, but there we go. I mean, but this is what the crowd came to see. They came to see counter-attacking rugby, exciting rugby, and they're really on the edge of their seats. But again, you have to say it came from a loose kick, and a misdirected kick, a kick which was pretty aimless.
And a kick when England had the advantage,
Absolutely.
which absolutely no need to welt the ball into the middle of play. But Samoans looked as though it had gone forward, but the referee waves play on, and England have managed to get the ball back. So once again, line-out ball is not what Samoa are looking for, and finally the penny seems to have dropped as far as Johnny Wilkinson's concerned. If they kick into touch, England have got a 50-50% chance of getting ball back off the Samoan line-out as well. So,
well, I think they've got to try and think about different options in the line at Samoa. They're not winning the full line-out, so they've got to try and shorten it. Oh, there we go.
Oh, well, you know the game very well. Short line-out works well for the Samoans and brought forward here by Schvalga. Now they get an opportunity to use the backs, and in the middle it's Henry Tuilagi, and even though he stopped, he took two players with him there. Polu underneath it, back inside to Lima. Lovely dummy, and the Samoans would dearly love to get themselves a try before the break. That would really lift morale, which at the moment is taking a severe denting still. Round the outside goes Lima. Polu has everyone prepared behind him, but that was, I hate to say it, almost English. But now Polu, they have an advantage. Need to whip it out wide. They have the options here. The English defence, terrible defending there from Tate. But the penalty given, so I'm fairly sure that they're going to take the 3 points at this stage of the game. Would probably be the sensible option.
Well, I think I'd take the 3 points, but I'm a conservative jock, so...
It is going to be the 3 points taken. It's a sensible thing to do at this stage of the game, because although the Samoans haven't had enjoyed that much possession, don't know, could all change after half-time, and going in 23 points to 9 down is better than going in 23-6 down, having spurned an opportunity by knocking the ball forward or just committing the unforced error.
But Matthew Tate just looking a little bit exposed at outside centre. I mean, you can imagine that Tuilagi running over him or through him, but...
Well, he rushed in there and got easy sidestep. Well, Loki Crichton maintains his 100% record with the boot. 23-9 then. The Samoans trail by those two converted tries. And that is the sole difference between the two teams at the moment. So, plenty for Michael Jones to be pondering at this stage of the game. Brian Ashton will probably be a very relieved man. It's not been a vintage England display. Well, it has been a vintage England display, but it hasn't been a vintage England display in the way that many people would like them to play. Just tipped forward from the restart there, and Martin Corrie thought he was in for a second try. Well, that would have been something to celebrate for him. Corrie has, as ever, been tireless in his effort. The Samoans, though, at the moment, it just every single form of set play is where they're struggling, and that's where England aren't going to be too concerned, because if Samoans can't win any ball in the set play and they can't build any platforms to attack from, England aren't going to give away a 14-point lead. Maybe if it was 7 points, but not 14. So a slightly better kick from Josh Lucy, but it's still not the optimum, not quite enough hang on it to put real pressure on. The Samoans get a chance to attack once again from deep, which they're going to do. Brian Lima, the man brought down there by Johnny Wilkinson, and the English turn it over. Now what can they do in reply?
Hands off, Blue!
Samoans warned about their hands in there. Gomersall charged down. Recovery from Wilkinson. Challenge comes flying in there from Brian Lima. Only one thing he was after, but
chance of Johnny Wilkinson on his knees already, and the chiropractor was going to rearrange him, I think.
He really was after that one. He's had a very, very quiet start to the game. And the charge down there, and Gomersall once again, I mean, not really. I mean, I can understand what he was doing there. Probably would have been the right option if he could have got the kick away, but there's Wilkinson, and Brian Lima tearing after him, and then as if he's got away from Brian Lima and he's got a Tuilangi in his face. I mean, it wasn't pretty viewing for Johnny Wilkinson. Still, the penalty conceded, and we run into injury time in this first half, and actually headbutted Simon Shaw there. Such was his desperation to escape the flailing arms and body of Brian Lima coming through there. Well, he made the escape, and now Loki Crichton with by far his trickiest opportunity to date. This one just inside the 10-yard line. 3 from 3. He's looked good, but I'm not sure whether his kicking style's got the legs to put this one right the way over. He'll definitely get it on target. Might end up hooking it, just putting that little bit of extra effort in. We'll see. Well, he makes me go quiet very, very quickly. So, the half-time score here at the Stade La Beaujoire in Nantes is an 11-point lead to England. They are currently winning this one by 23 points to 12.
Samoa managing to stay in touch with those 2 penalty goals towards the end of the half. We'll be back after this break to have a look at that first half with our experts. English fans, great colour in Nantes as the players come back out onto the field, and we'll resume commentary. Rupert pointed to that traditional fade in the second half, or the last quarter of the game for Samoa. Can they change that trend? We'll find out. David Soul and Jonathan Hayes-Bass will join us now.
Well, the side's back out here for the second half of the Stade La Beaujoire. So far, this has been a happy hunting ground for the English team. It remains to be seen whether the Samoans can just, if they can get more possession in this second half, then absolutely anything is definitely possible. They trail by 11. Brian Ashton, I still feel that there are a few more hairs that could fall out that head before the end of the game, but as we get it back underway with Loki Crichton, he goes deep, and real indecision from Gomersall. He's been very lucky to get away with that. Feels the full force of the Samoan defence as England pick and drive, and basic errors once again creeping into the English game, and this gives the Samoans a superb attacking platform early on.
Well, not a good start by Gomersall. I think his forwards won't thank him for that. They'd have wanted him to give it to Johnny Wilkinson, who might drill it 50 yards down the park. But instead, they've got a scrum in a very good attacking position for Samoa.
Samoans need to stay strong in the set piece, which they have done on this occasion. Polly breaks. They've got Henry Tuilangi coming round, and he breaks through the gain line, and immediately options out wide. Ball goes forward, but it's a penalty conceded by England.
Well, it was lazy running by Johnny Wilkinson there. It was very obvious. Junior Polo trying to get the ball away quickly from that good Henry Tuilangi drive. Look at the disbelief on Martin Corrie's face. Oh bother, he said, I think, if I read his lips correctly.
Yeah, well, being a professional at lip reading you are, David, I think you're absolutely spot on. But the situation we find ourselves in here is that, I mean, they're going to take the 3 points, but it's almost disappointing for the Samoans, because I think they would have fancied their chances there. However, a very positive start for them. Get the 3 points here. It's back to within 8. And Henry Tuilangi, well, he's just that's how they've got to use him, and he's crashed through, and 4 English players taken with that one, and then the lazy running of Johnny Wilkinson, as you say, clear for everyone to see there. And Lakey Crichton with a very simple chance to just slot it over. So 23-15. The Samoans have been the ones who've kept the scoreboard ticking over. 23-6 until 5 minutes before the break, and the Samoans have now scored 9 unanswered points. England, well, it's just that nagging doubt that's going to creep into them. It's whether they've got the self-belief. I mean, they've got very few players out there now who actually do have the belief in winning the games. This player, of course, being one of them. But he's been out for so long, you just wonder what sort of state his self-confidence is in himself. He's had quite a start. That is a smashing hit. And the Samoans thought they were away for a second. I don't know what the referee's bringing this back for. Is it offside?
I think it would be the challenge on Johnny Wilkinson now.
Put him straight in the bin.
Just get it lower. Lower. That's all. Lower. Okay?
No. Well, Brian Lima just gets a warning.
Lower.
Well, this is exactly the sort of challenge that A, Brian Lima's famous for, but also B, that Michael Jones was talking about coming in, and oh yeah, it's quite high. In defence of Johnny Wilkinson, I can see why he was a bit disappointed there.
Well, they talk about Brian Lima's timing of the tackle, and the timing of the tackle was absolutely perfect. He hit Johnny Wilkinson perfectly. I think if he had been 6 inches lower, there'd be no question about that being a fair tackle. But that's his trademark, Brian Lima. It was Johnny Wilkinson probably thinking he'd be taking up hockey rather than playing rugby, and if he gets a few more hits like that. But the crowd don't like it.
Well, they don't like the fact that England are going for goal as well. It'd be interesting to see whether, I mean, Johnny Wilkinson's taken a ferocious amount of hits. One just has to think back to the 99 World Cup when the Tongans targeted him. And he's been, I mean, a targeted player by everyone around the world ever since. Is he seeing straight is the question. Into his head rather than into the chest. Still, the Samoans need to adapt with the times and the way the game is going, and that is the way the game's going. England getting a rare rumble on. Gomersall tries the box kick to bring Saki into play. Tuilangi comes in. Well taken, and Polly to Lima. The Samoans look to counter. Just a little nudge forward, and that could be a very clever kick if it gets the bounce. Doesn't get the bounce wanted, and Solly Barkley with a very rare touch on the ball. Doesn't find touch though, and Tuilangi building up ahead of steam. Alisana coming off his wing on this occasion. Brian Lima goes in to make sure that the English can't turn over the ball. It's a long pass into the middle, well picked up by Kane Thompson, but the Samoans are going backwards there. Polly looks to put some pressure on Josh Lucy, who hasn't really been tested so far since his return to fullback, but his kicking has been atrocious despite the fact that he hasn't had any pressure put on him. Lovely little kick forward, great hands as well, out wide here to Schvalga. Kicked inside, it's a chase for the line for Polo, can he make it? Well, they'll go to the TMO, I am sure. Well, David.
I think Polo was in front of the kicker there. I think he was offside, and I'd be interested to see the replay on it, but very hard to tell whether he scored the try or not.
But they can't call back on that, can they?
No, they can't call back on that.
So this is literally a chase for the line, and it looked to me as though, well, as you can see clearly from that angle, nothing at all. But that doesn't look as though anyone's got any downward pressure on it at all.
I think he's missed it though. We may see from there Matthew Tate obviously chasing back.
Well, we've seen stranger ones given. The one that always I remember is a Welsh one against England when the Welsh beat England at the Arms Park to prevent them winning the Grand Slam, where the ball must have been about a yard off the ground when it bounced off. That's downward pressure. It could be given.
I think he's made a decision. I think he's going to give it a try there.
Well, it certainly makes the game more interesting.
Yes, okay, take your time.
And now he's having another look at it. Tolson, if you can hear us down there on touchline, I don't know whether you got a good view of that.
I didn't get any view of that whatsoever. I think you guys, with those replays, would have a much better view than I have. But looking at it from the angle, as we're seeing from the far side of the pitch, you'd have to say that he's put his hand on the ball. We can see the angle coming up here. And Polu, it looks like his right hand has got downward pressure, and any benefit of the doubt, I think that they scored the try there.
Yes,
is that any benefit of the doubt that goes against England?
Try has been scored.
It's a try has been given. Well, I can imagine the English fans are not going to be very happy about that, and I should imagine that Brian Ashton probably isn't going to be very happy about that. But for me, it's certainly the best thing that could happen in the game. I think that's wonderful. In my impartial position, however, I will have to say that it's like anything at all. It's like penalties. It's like penalty tries. It's like tries that are given sometimes, tries that aren't given. Remember Ali Hogg scoring a perfectly good try against the French at the Stade de France a few years ago, which was given in touch, and just these examples. It's one of the things that even with a TMO that you can't legislate against human error or humans getting it right, and it's gone with the attacking side as it should do. Well, is it going to be another classic England performance that is saved by the boot of Johnny Wilkinson? It remains to be seen. At the moment, just 4 points between the two sides. Shooter picks it up. Wilkinson, England have an opportunity out here, out wide. Cueto. Well, little confidence shown by Cueto there. The gap wasn't that small. You'd expect a winger to have gone for it, even if he was going to be driven into touch.
Absolutely, but I think it's indicative of lack of confidence, and Matthew Tate as well.
Possibly. Well, I think Tate wanted to give him the chance of a run-in, but he could have delayed his pass a little more, drawn the tackler in. But as it is, England still will be confident they can convert something here, because they got an attacking line out and they have managed to get the drive going from this position. They're not going to on this occasion, but is it going to be a pick and go? Marvin Corrie waits at the back. Goswell doesn't look that interested in having it. It is a pick and go from the English, but once again momentum goes. Too static once again through the forwards, but they've managed to soak in a few Samoan defenders. Get it out sharp and wide here. Cover tackling excellent from the Samoan defence on that occasion, but they're going to need to stay there. Back inside to Easter. And the penalty given away, and the Samoans rewarded for some really good hits in defence, and England punished for this very slow ball they continually seem to be hampered by and have been for so long now.
And at that time it was just Simon Shaw who just got isolated, and but again indicative that England aren't aggressive, they're not fast enough at the breakdown, they're not clearing away the Samoan defenders and recycling the ball quickly.
But the classic example is that someone like Henry Tuilagi, even when he does burst through the tackles, he's being given a 2 or 3 pace head start to build up some momentum. The English forwards, when they get in the line, they're taking it flat, they're taking it static, so they then have to start again. And it's never worked in world rugby, but it's working even less now that the English players just aren't, they're not tier 1 players, in my opinion, at the moment. They're not good enough, so they need to create some luck for themselves, and they're just not doing it. Alan Lewis saying a few words there. We've got one of the Samoan props here, Census Johnson, down.
Okay. Yeah, he's okay. Happy now? Time out. That's good, I'm aligned, yeah.
Whatever happens, I think it's going to be very, very interesting because the crowd have burst into one of the familiar Mexican waves, employed slightly differently to when it originated in Mexico 86, for when there was a pause in play or something, just a passage of football was being particularly boring. In France, it seems to be adapted to just get the crowd going, as it were. They shouldn't really need any encouragement on this occasion. We've got an excellent ball game on, and once again the English just giving away possession to Elangi.
Release, and then you can another one in the
by
side.
his brother there before he can take a quick one.
But look how sort of energised and alive the Samoans are. Brian Lima in there, Paul Saki, so clear. Just the delay that England's, the ruckers come in to try to clear away the ball. But Saki had no option. He either let go of the ball and give it to Samoa or hold on to it, concede the penalty.
Loki Crichton, who has kicked very, very well so far in this game, takes play up to just shy of the English 22. Well, in much the same way as just watching that South Africa-Tonga match, we were thinking, well, there's no way it's going to get to this stage and the Tongans are still going to be living with the South Africans. Even though English rugby was a crisis point after that loss to South Africa, no one really thought that it was going to reach a stage where the Samoans were going to be putting this much pressure on them, even after their performance against England 4 years ago. Still, the Samoans possibly making the wrong option there, I think. I know they kicked for position, but they're just not winning much line-out ball. Hard to see what other option they could come up with. They've lost possession. Johnny Wilkinson. And it was a more intelligent kick, but it still was easily dealt with, and Samoans put it deep, and this time Lucy must find touch, and he almost overcompensates.
But after that little passage of play, who would you rather be? I mean, I think you'd rather be Samoa with the line out in England's half. But I don't think Johnny Wilkinson's kicking from hand has been anything like as good and as polished as it normally is. He normally dictates games, he controls games, he turns the pressure on when it's appropriate, and he's just not looked the sort of player he normally is.
He hasn't looked the talisman that he usually is, although his place kicking has been very good. England are really enjoying themselves on the Samoan line out there. Samoans need to start, well, they're even there, they were changing things up. They were just a four-man line out. Mark Cueto goes chasing after that one. Good pressure put on there because it's, I think, come off the Samoan hand, and it's Lemmy who concedes the line out. So England suddenly find themselves, they have alleviated the pressure, but still need to make it count, this pressure.
Well, there was a better kick and there was more pressure on it, so Cueto was up there challenging for the ball. When the kick's along, there's no way that any of the runners can get there to challenge the catcher.
Ball out into the backs on this occasion, and Lee Barkley with a very rare opportunity to run. Johnny Wilkinson again uses, and that's forward from Josh Lucy coming into the line. Or was it Tate? But whoever it was, he got absolutely munched in the tackle.
Well, again, it was the timing of the tackle which was absolutely perfect. No question about that.
A bit of afters from Satiti, but that shows how strong Johnny Wilkinson can be. I mean, that's one of the main reasons he's probably survived and come back to play for England after that long layoff from injury. He has taken a phenomenal amount of hits throughout his career and always seems to bounce back. And Satiti's not a small lad. It's bouncing off him. Still, Samoan still struggling in the set plays, and Josh Lucy picks it up, and England with a really great opportunity here, and Barkley has definitely employed the wrong tactic by kicking through there, and whatever the confidence of the English players with ball in hand, they had an overlap there. And again, I mean, I would say that Johnny Wilkinson, when they scored the second try, even then they were fortunate that came off. The chip through has just been overused in this World Cup, in my opinion. There's not enough of the players keeping the ball in hand.
Well, I think Brian Ashton has to think about what impact changes can he make, and I think one of them he could make is actually to move Ollie Barkley to 10, because he had a super game against, he was the one shining light in the game against the USA, and really looked on top form and made breaks, really checked the opposition defence, and obviously it didn't mean bringing Farrell on.
Now England have a rumble and they have an advantage as well. They're going to have a penalty anyway, which is why Johnny Wilkinson felt so confident about going for the drop goal, which he went for with the right boot, but he has the opportunity to reinstate a 7-point advantage to England.
With the drop goal, you've no problem.
And this will be a welcome break for the English players, because at the same time, though, Brian Ashton will probably have in the back of his mind that the Samoan try came from open play. Now, not to say that it won't happen again, but that the Samoans haven't been able to really capitalise on the penalties they've been winning and kicking for position. They haven't been able to exert any real pressure on England. It's all come from deep.
Yeah, it's because they're not able to win their own ball at the line out, and it's such an important aspect of modern play now. And I think England have targeted that. They've got big men, Simon Shaw and Ben Kay in the second row, and they've done very well on the opposition's ball. But
well, Tolson, just a quick word from you. The Samoans bursting right back into this one with that try. Now the chance for Johnny Wilkinson to add 3. Do you feel there's a sense of foreboding at all amongst the English fans, or are they still quite buoyant and confident?
Make sure they're behind you.
Well, the difference between the English cavalry and the South African cavalry that was brought off the bench to make the difference against Tonga is quite startling. Another pitiful unforced error and terrible kicking. I mean, it just really has been a return to the days I remember when it feels a little unfair to target Mike Catt like this after he had such an atrocious game against South Africa. But when he was playing at 10 for England, they seem to employ this game of kicking the ball straight down the middle of the park. Now, they're not trying to kick the ball down the middle of the park, but at this level you should not be missing touch with the frequency that the English players have been doing. And well, hearing from Tolson there that Andy Gomersol's error early on brought Pete Richards out to start warming up, it will not be a surprise if we see Andy Gomersol being replaced quite soon.
Okay.
Well, there's an unfortunate mistake by Samoa. After the mistake of England and just jumping around in their own 22, there was actually an offside runner who was within 10 yards. And you've got to start retiring until you put onside, and that's actually a bit of a let-off for England, because they're in a very good attacking position and dominating in the set piece, you have to say.
They really are dominating in all aspects of the set piece at the moment.
Back you go. Back you go.
And Lewis will be keeping a very firm eye here. Now, Jason Robinson, probably again the only English player who could hold his head up high after the performance against South Africa. A good 10-15 yards from some very average ball out into the backs. Now a chance here for Wilkinson, but swallowed up. Still managed to get the ball back, but the Samoans consent the turnover. He managed to avert that, and Nick Easter just comes lolloping off the back. He's done well, actually, before I criticise too much. Gomersol, Wilkinson again. Barkley dropped Dropped into Simon Shaw. Simon Shaw back to Wilkinson. Now Worsley. Corrie, it's going through hands for the sake of going through hands at that particular stage, and possession slowed right down to a grinding halt. Sixth phase again while Wilkinson went for a drop goal. He'll probably want some slightly better position if he's to do the same thing as he goes through and supports, but the Samoans have turned it over, and Brian Lima clears it, and the chase is on. And well, if that had just stayed in, you can tell by the way that Tuilagi reacted. He knows he had the beating of Martin Corrie there, and some. I should imagine he'd have had time to score the try and run back to it before it reached the 22.
Of course, they'll know each other fairly well, being teammates at Leicester, Tuilagi and Corrie.
Well, we enter the last quarter then of this game. It's England 26, Samoa 22. The Samoans probably haven't offered quite what everyone expected coming into the tie, but they've stayed in touch, and they're just 4 points separate. Terrible line-out by England, a gift at Samoa. They keep ball in hand. Ball released, cut back inside. The English defence comfortably ready for that, but this is the sort of platform Samoa would have wanted to. The ball from Lima, though, gets no protection, and England can counter. They've got 3-on-2. But no communication, and the hack up the line, and something could happen here. And that's brilliant defence, but still not clear. Samoans dive for the line, and Alan Lewis calls it held up. It's a scrum 5 to the Samoans. Well, I mean, some desperate defence there from England, and once again, coming from very open play, Josh Lucy with the vital slide in there, but then to give the ball away like that, very nearly conceding the try, while England are now on the rack. They are 5 yards from their own line, and whatever their performance in the set piece, they're going to be nerves jangling down there now.
But if you go back to what it came from, it was England had an overlap, and it was a dreadful pass to no one because the winger had come off his wing, and you just sense this sort of the lack of confidence that England have and are showing is just coming through in spades, and
lack of confidence, lack of communication, because they did very well there.
Well, here we are. This is the start of it, and well, Ollie Barkley
out to Tate, and then Tate had winger outside him, Quater cut back inside, and then almost another opportunity for a breakaway try for the Samoans, but still they'll fancy their chances.
But when you do sense at the moment, because Samoa are having to play the ball so far away from the try line, the only tries they are going to score are from breakaways or the mistakes that England may make that they can capitalise on.
But the thing is, the amount of mistakes England are making, you wouldn't put it. I mean, it's not as though they're going to feel that they're not going to have the opportunity as they make a substitution here. It's Kas Lealamanu who comes off. And does it look as though we're going to be having any changes made by the English team soon, Tolson, just with the way things are going?
Just standing on the sideline, Jonathan, there hasn't been any movement as far as it goes on the bench. There may well be after this scrum, though, because the Samoans are really on a roll. Fossey Palamo is the man who came onto the pitch there, but just something for a jilted Englishman up there in the commentary box like yourself, Jonathan, to think about. If England do go on and lose this match, at least they can form a band, because Andrew Sheridan plays the guitar, George Tudor plays the saxophone, and Joe Worsley plays the piano. I'll let David Sole work out what the band can be called.
Well, Towson, just before you start getting carried away about calling me an Englishman, I'm actually a Scot, even though my accent doesn't sound as though it is. But, however, I'm not going to be pigeonholed with people who support England at the moment. I'm trying to be as objective as possible. That's all I'm doing up here. Still, a great opportunity for the Samoans if they can stay strong in the tight here. At the back is picked up by Tuilagi, slightly isolated, but his back row forwards quickly in there. They keep it tight for the time being. The Samoans will probably fancy their chances taking on the English pack. It's not as though they haven't managed to break through them. Still, Polly. This time, that is too static. But it soaks up defenders. Still, just Daniel Leo going backwards this time. The Samoans can keep on recycling it, though. They'll still be confident. Going for a rather audacious little effort there, Lemmy, the winger. Polu with the support of Schvalga and also Kane, Rob Thompson. Keeps on slowing down, but bit by bit the Samoans going to Tuilagi. He was a marked man by Martin Corrie from the outset there, but the Samoans can still get this one back. Polu goes blind. Lima to just pick a spot. This is encouraging for Brian Ashton as far as the English defence is concerned. Polu out wide at his side, just when they needed to try and maintain that ball, and Cueto breaks well. English have an advantage. Shooter just needs to straighten. Once again the ball though down to a snail's pace. Now this is where Johnny Wilkinson needs to make his kicking count, and well, that is just kicking away your advantage, and the Samoans can counter. Need support quickly there though, otherwise they're going to concede a penalty. Trying to get over the ball, and they've managed to retain possession, and they'll pick up possession in almost in a better attacking position for them than it was 5 yards from the line in some ways, as far as Samoan rugby is concerned.
Well, they tried to muscle their way over here. It was an extraordinary little hurdling attempt over the top there, the sort of thing you see in American football rather than rugby. But yeah, again, just they don't have the sort of physique and power technique to out-muscle, you know, what is a pretty solid English defence. It's when the ball is when the play is fragmented that England begin to look a little bit more vulnerable. And, you know, I think they'd have been better trying to get the ball out into space and move it wide, see if they could find gaps out wide.
Well, change made there by England with Perry Freshwater coming on, and we're also going to see the arrival of Steve Borthwick.
Come closer, please, England. Come closer. Crouch. Touch. Pause. No. No, it's not.
Samoans and Gomersall just a little over keen to get the ball off his opposite number. Junior Polu expecting a free kick to be awarded here if the Samoans can't.
Time off again, please. Okay, well, we'll deal with it, Here's our mark, yeah?
At the lineouts, and you know, the forwards can consider a job well done in the set piece, but it's just the issue around the sort of contact areas and the pace at which they're able to recycle ball. That's been England's biggest problem right the way through this World Cup campaign.
And the other huge problem that faces them here, really, in my opinion, is the fact that they played against a Samoan side who haven't really impressed me throughout this game, and yet they lead them by just 4 points.
Well, that's right. I mean, you know, Samoa, if they finish with a bonus point from this, then I'm sure they'll be absolutely delighted. I think England, on the other side, if they don't finish with the bonus point for 4 tries, they'll be very disappointed.
And they'll be seriously worried, even more so now going into that Tongan fixture. Steve Soyalu has come on to replace Polu, and they've just scragged Josh Lucy there, who is desperate for the support of his forwards. The cavalry arrives just in the nick of time. Wilkinson back round onto his right boot, tries to cut back inside, bounces off a couple of tackles, but now leaves it to Gomersall to get it clear. And this time it is a good clearance kick from the scrum half. So with the clock ticking down, we approach the final 10 minutes. Josh Lucy there, well, once again, the old chiropractor was in the corner of his eye. I'm not surprised that he hit the deck as quickly as possible. Johnny Wilkinson with a fairly extraordinary decision. Just shows the lack of confidence he has in his kicking from hand at the moment, that he didn't think about sending the ball way downfield as he would have done in days of yore. Samoans have struggled, as we have been pointing out in the line-up. Managed to get it back though, Soyalu. And now they can attack from deep. Ball played in along the ground. Not the most sensible kick. Didn't put any real pressure on England. But, I mean, another missed touch, and where you just feel that if England managed to avoid the ignominy of failing to go through on in the pool stages, then they're going to come a cropper in the quarter-finals. And that one, a little chip ahead, just inches away. Up and under hoisted. That's a better kick. Actually gives the English a chance to get underneath it. Went forward, but England going to come up with the ball. And now Wilkinson, they can spread it through the backs. Barkley, just no real options outside him. When he had options, he just decided not to use them. Back inside to Shooter. And that's just going straight back into where the ball came from. And we're getting more and more demoralising for those in the white shirts on the sidelines to watch. Wilkinson, bit of pace on the ball this time. They've just come sideways across the pitch, haven't gone forward at all. Down the blind side now, back inside. Gomersall, better handling from England. They get a little bit of momentum coming forward. Gomersall out. Barkley sidesteps his way half through a challenge. Wilkinson, here's the cry from the referee that offside's been awarded, goes for a 3-point drop goal anyway, and notches it up, so England's lead back out to 7.
It's just laboured and you know, really difficult to get excited about, I'm afraid.
So laboured. It's Henry Tuilagi who departs, and he's certainly given us all. Lewis Moody also looks as though he's about to come on for the English. Player who's ill-disciplined has cost his country dear in years gone by, just by conceding needless penalties and also having himself sent to the bin. He replaces Joe Worsley, who, well, he's done very little to set the world alight, but he's also probably done everything that Brian Ashton asked of him before he took to the field.
Well, I think it is a fairly one-paced English back row. You know, Joe Worsley, Martin Corrie, Nicky Sir, all fairly one-paced. What Lewis Moody does, he'll bring, or should bring, a little bit more dynamism in, and a bit more sort of aggression at the contact areas.
Salala Mafusur, and is replaced by Jerry Meffa, and the player coming on was Alfie Vaialuaga, who came on to replace Henry Tuilagi. Well, with 10 minutes to go then, England lead this one by 7 points to nil. Well, not by 7 points to nil, but just by 7 points, in fact. I'll get there in the end. But it's 29-22, and that restart from the Samoans, exactly, just really the sort of reason that I would think that England will depart this pitch, just so disappointed that they didn't put this game to bed earlier, because the Samoans have committed so many unforced errors and put so much extra pressure on themselves, and also they've just not had the possession.
No, they haven't, and they've just made little errors in Samoa. You know, a few turnovers in the first half. They've not been able to not dominate the lineouts, but even get parity at the lineouts. They've been put under pressure there by England very, very effectively, and you have to say England have done a really good job at the set piece.
Well, Johnny Wilkinson, we know that he's certainly got the range to slot one of these from the halfway line. Radar's been a little bit off at times today, but he's still contributed the lion's share of the points for England. And you maybe just wonder if Wilkinson hadn't been fit, and Ollie Barkley, I mean, those two who they missed so desperately against the Springboks. I'm not saying that the result would have been any different, but I think England would have probably got on the scoreboard at least. And they haven't been playing well. This could have been a very, very different game indeed. As it is, though, even with their return, England are not convincing anyone out there that they're going to defend their trophy. Looking as though they might do exactly the same thing. change there for England was Dan Hipkiss, I think, coming on to replace Matthew Tate. So Hipkiss getting his first run out at the World Cup, and also Lola Louis coming on for the Samoans.
Skipper.
Same as Titi.
Which one?
He's
okay.
limping towards the touchline, looking as though he's had enough. But it's Brian Lima who's the player who is replaced by Louis. Well, he's had a good game, Lima. He just hasn't quite been able to have the impact on the game that he would have wanted, and he went very close to having the impact he wanted at times. As it is, Samoa really do face an uphill struggle. You don't see England throwing away this lead, but at the same time, this England side isn't made of the same stuff that the one 4 years ago was, or indeed, when Will Carling was around, you wouldn't see an England side conceding a 10-point lead, but they were playing very similar rugby.
That's the first drive we've seen since about the third minute of the match.
Exactly.
You can see what an impact it has on the Samoans.
We were saying what encouraging signs those were for England fans, and yet it really was flattering to deceive early on. However, as we've said throughout, the big thing that England would want to take away from this game is a victory. Even if they don't get the bonus point, the win is the all-important thing. And down there on the sidelines, Tolson, I know that you're going to be very taken up with post-match interviews in just a few moments, but just your thoughts on the game at this stage, and a prediction for a final score?
I think now that England are 10 points to the good, I think that's insurmountable as far as Samoa goes, because you can't see them in 7 minutes overcoming that. Probably the problem has been, as we've spoken about today, has been their set plays, especially their line-outs. But for England, they have to work on getting quick ball for their next game. That's been the key area when they've done well, is when they've got quick ball. A crowd of 37,022 here today, and you've seen Loki Crichton, the Worcester Warriors fullback for Samoa, still has scored 17 points through 5 penalties and a conversion. He has been named man of the match.
Well, there's a Samoan player still down, and I think it looks as though it's Census Johnson again, isn't it? And he's already had some trouble and received quite a lot of attention from the trainers. Vauelaga, who's replaced Tuolangi, as they try and get something going down the blind side. Titi cuts back in. For all that England have been very slow and very negative in this game, that one wasn't knocked backwards. The Samoans still, they're not producing the sort of rugby I think that many people expected them to bring to the table at this World Cup.
No, there's just been flashes of brilliance and flashes where they've played the game with continuity, offloading, and actually, of course, caused England a few problems, but they've been too few and far between.
And I think we'll hear from Michael Jones, of course, after this game, but it's really, I mean, if they go back home having just beaten the USA, it'll have been a really disappointing World Cup for them, because they came here with such intention to get through to the quarterfinals once again. Genuinely thought that they could have beaten England. Well, they've competed with England. They haven't beaten them, and they're not going to beat them unless there's a remarkable occurrence in the closing 5 minutes here. But as it is, I mean, to lose against Tonga, a game that they would have thought that they would win easily, and after all the promise that the first half against South Africa shows, it will be a very bleak World Cup memory for all of this squad and their coach.
Well, it will, and you just wonder whether their sort of mental focus has been misdirected. I wonder whether they've been focusing on this match too much at the expense of their first really big match, which they had to win, which was Tonga, and then they lost that one, and it just takes a lot of momentum out of what they're trying to do. And if you can't build any momentum during a World Cup campaign, it makes life very, very difficult.
Very difficult indeed. England look to finish with a flourish. Gomersall goes down the blind side. Lucy with the injection of pace, had Saki outside him, decided to go himself. Just 10 yards short now. Gomersall again. Well, England are just going nowhere, and the defence will soak that up remarkably easily. They need recycled ball here quickly, and it's slowed right down. Gomersall. And out wide. They've got options here. Saki. Touch back inside. Beautifully offloaded from Saki, and the try is scored. Well, even then, England looked as though they might shoot themselves in the foot and fail to get it, but it's the bonus point. And that... Sorry, it's not the bonus point. It's the first try of this half.
Yeah, they need one more to get the bonus point. If they can get that in the last 5 minutes, I'm sure they'll be very, very happy. But just nice little cutback by Paul Saki, and Mark McCurry on the inside. Took about 3 Samoans over the try line with him, but you can see him yelling for the inside pass. And, I think where England, when they've been able to sort of farm possession effectively and sort of get good continuity, good phases, and quicker, just fractionally quicker ball, they've done very well. But the backs are aligned very, very deep at the moment. And I mean, you mentioned it, when the passes go awry or slightly behind them, it takes all the pace out of the movement. If you're going to align yourself deep, you've got to put the ball in front of the runner.
And that is something that the Southern Hemisphere sides do so well, and one of the reasons that they consistently break the gain line. And it's something that just I find extraordinary that the Northern Hemisphere sides haven't been able to. Well, why they haven't trained to do this? Whether it's just a question of the fact that they've spent so much time, as one of your colleagues out here, Simon Mannix, has consistently said, too much time bulking up and not enough time on concentrating on the simplicity of rugby. Well, it remains to be seen, but you just have so much slow ball, and the passes don't seem to go to hand.
I mean, I think you can spend a lot of time in the gym, and you can spend a lot of time bulking up, doing all the physical stuff. But for me, rugby is about the ball, and all the training that I think you should be doing should be orientated with the ball. So there's just so much comfort. So when you get put into positions where you can score tries, bingo, it happens just as a matter of course, rather than because you're thinking about it. It becomes much more intuitive. And there are very few sides who have intuitive footballers, I think, nowadays, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere. You see some of the French players, but
But even there, probably their star of intuition would be Freddie Michalak, and his performance being erratic at the best of times. And so it's interesting to watch. I mean, Wilkinson has got a good footballing brain, but his game's a little off kilter at the moment. But so saying, England will probably take. Now, with the score up to 39-22, this will probably be seen as a very positive English performance, and yet there were long stretches of time in that second half. If the Samoans could have put together, and it's all about ifs and coulds and buts, but if they could have put together some sustained pressure on the English, then who knows what could have happened. As it is, they're still trying to play rugby as the sun finally comes out and beams down on the Stade Le Bourgeois, and just those little unforced errors have crept into the Samoan game. Steve Soyalu takes a quick one there, and once again it's not 4, but were they not 10, I don't think.
I think
those English fans don't seem to agree with Alan David. What a surprise.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they'll want, with a minute or so on the clock, they'll want England to close this game down. And you said it, England sides 4 years ago, with Will Carling at the helm, they knew how to close a game down. With 10 minutes and even with a slight winning margin, they would control the game. And England haven't controlled the game as effectively as they might have done, particularly with the amount of possession that they've had.
I think one of the very disappointing aspects for this England game will be the combination of Wilkinson and Barkley at fly half and centre that do not seem to have complemented themselves at all, which is very disappointing, because that was something that Ashton was vesting a lot of his concentration in the build-up to the game about. Samoans managed to win the ball in the line-out, but it's untidy, as it has been all game. And it's in the set pieces that they've really been let down. England managed to get it out wide, and Borthwick, I think, there, charging forward. Gomersall. They just need a simple pass, but that's all they needed there. In that position, it's 80 minutes on the clock. Johnny Wilkinson finds touch, and It is. You can tell by the atmosphere within the stadium, though, that despite the fact that England have won this game by a 17-point margin, there's no real belief within even the fans. They don't feel they've seen a good performance. They don't feel that they've seen a side who are going to do anything at all in this World Cup, and certainly who aren't going to be defending their title.
Well, I think when they look at the video of the South Africa against Tonga match, they'll recognise that they've got another very, very difficult task ahead of them. And they've got to stay focused. They've got to think about how they play and think about how they control the game and control possession more effectively than they have done in this match, because they're going to need to.
Tuilagi just sorting one through there. A big tackles put in by Justin Purdy. But the thing that will definitely worry the English about the fact that they're taking on, and that was being played in the air, definite penalty given, and Saki felt the full force. That's yellow, I should imagine, and a really unnecessary yellow to concede at the end, because totally illegal playing him in the air.
Well, he lined him up, but I think it was just a question of timing. You could see that left foot come down and he thought, well, I'll just have a go anyway. When does Samoa never really held back from a 50-50 tackle?
I can't remember any occasion. But Paul Saki certainly had the wind knocked out of him there, and Brian Lima, a man who would have been proud of that challenge there, I'm sure. The ball goes into touch from the penalty. And well, the Samoans, the worrying thing I was saying about the Tongan performance was the fact that the Tongans, when they looked dead and buried, when the Springboks brought all the big guns on, when they brought on Victor Matfield, Brian Habana, when they brought on Juan Smith, and they brought on John Smith in the front row, and Percy Montgomery, I mean, it was, and Francois Steen, I mean, they had their big guns out there on the pitch, and they scored this beautiful 3-try blitz, and so it looked, for all intents and purposes, the Tongans were done for, and yet they just came back with such spirit, and that's something that Tongan rugby really has somehow managed to conjure up during this World Cup. It's not something you'd expect. You'd expect them to have rolled over, and they didn't. And so England really are going to... The other thing is, well, Saki here makes a break and should be able to go over for the bonus point. Well, that could be incredibly vital. Brian Ashton isn't convinced it's been given yet. That's why he wasn't getting carried away. So it's a brace for Saki and a brace for Corrie. And Alan Davis has asked for confirmation from upstairs.
Well, it was actually a very important try to score. I think if England had gone away without the bonus point, they'd have felt, very, very disappointed. And bonus points could be so crucial in this particular pool. Lovely inside pass, and a lot of fatigue in the Samoans' legs. Defence not aligned.
And Tuilagi just unable to make the tackle.
I don't think there's any question about this one.
No, I don't see that. No, definite try. So England have pulled away to a remarkably comfortable margin, and when one considers the scores that they've chalked up against Samoa, the first time that they played them right the way back in 1995 in the World Cup, they won by exactly the same margin as this, and the last time they played back in November 2005, they won by 40 points to 3. It hasn't been as comfortable as that occasion, but it has been a pretty comfortable victory in the end, although you have to say that...
Say that again?
Would you say the scoreline's flattered England here at all or not?
Well, yes and no. I mean, on the one hand, 44-46, if Johnny Wilkinson converts this 22, looks like a pretty convincing victory against what is always a very difficult physical side to play against. But at the same time, the modus operandi of their victory and the opportunities that they should have capitalised on, it should have been 60, I think, and it should have been put to bed a lot sooner than it was.
He's probably had a bit of an off day with the boot as far as he's concerned, only 78%. And he hooks that one inside, but the Final whistle is blown by Alan Davies, and in the end it has been a comfortable victory for England. They've won by 22 points. They've chalked up the bonus point. 2 tries from Corrie and 2 from Paul Saki, one each side of the break. The final score here is 44-22 to England.
Revival or an ongoing struggle? We'll have a look at this game in more detail after the break here